Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Dr. Chris, that's a beautiful one. So we have you now.
All right.
All right. Okay. So thank you very much. And we are starting the webinar shortly. So we just want to allow some time to so that attendees can keep coming in. We can see they're already populating the attendee room. So we just allow them come in. I would also say that the webinar is being streamed live on our Facebook platform and on our YouTube platform as well. So we also have attendees who are joining us from that end. So we're going to allow for a few more minutes to allow more attendees join in, after which we're going to start the webinar. All right, so as we're joining in from various locations across the world, please, I would like you to make use of the chat section. Just let us know your name and where you're joining us from. So we can do a brief shout out while we have more people joining in for the webinar. All right. All right, thank you very much. I can see we have people already telling us where they are joining us from. We have Oladele Oyatope joining us from the Lagos State Secretariat, Alausa. It's nice to have you here. We have Ayatu Ibrahim, all the way from National Open University of Nigeria. It's a joy to have you as well. So we're going to allow for just 2 more minutes to allow more people join in. May I also say that we're streaming this webinar live via various platforms on Facebook at Telecommunication and Technology Sustainability Working Group, and on, pardon me, please, and on YouTube at TTSWG. So please kindly reach out and you can follow as well to keep track of the progress we are making. So we'll be giving just a few more minutes to allow more people join in, and then we will start the webinar in full swing. Thank you very much.
I think this thing was
All right. Okay. So may I advise that while we try to resolve the technical challenge with the chat box, please kindly make use of the Q&A box to let us know where you're joining us from. I can see we have Benjamin Salakor from Ottawa, Canada. We have Damian Ude from IHS. I suppose that is in Lagos. And we have a host of other people who are joining in. So please feel free to make use of the Q&A box and send us your location and where you are joining us from. We have our panelists on board, and they're ready to give it a go for a very interesting session. And I'm certain that we're going to have a very, very great experience this morning. All right, without further ado, we start the webinar. So I will be inviting our distinguished board member in person of Dr. Chris Uwaje, who is a board member of TTSWG. Dr. Chris Uwaje has done extensive work in the ICT sector in Nigeria. He has pioneered policy initiatives that have cut across the ICT sector, both in the government, for the public sector, as well as for the private sector as well. He has also chaired a number of bodies, and he's a fellow of the leading ICT institutions and institutes in Nigeria. So please, I want you to make welcome our very own honored Dr. Chris Uwaje as he gives us the welcome address.
Thank you very much, and greetings to everybody. I'm very privileged to have been.
Dr. Chris, I believe we are unable to hear you. Perhaps you could try to unmute.
Yeah, I've unmuted already. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. Is it loud and clear? Or do I make my voice more audible?
Yes, we can hear you better.
You can hear me better now. Great.
Yes. Excellent.
And thank you to Deji, who, of course, is a pioneer of the hearing aids. Well, let me use this privilege to really thank everybody who is on call here. I could see 67 participants, including our secretariat and all that are there. But let me begin by addressing, recognizing the board of directors and our chairman, Engineer Wires, our vice chair, Dr. Wumi Hassan, and of course our founder, Mrs. Masade Lowola. This is a very significant webinar. It's been planned for quite a long time, and I'm not surprised that it has become a worldwide platform in terms of the presence. I also want to recognize our very amiable speakers here in-house. Deji Hastrov is a known great mind of our time, of course, a veteran knowledge conqueror, and of course, who has delved, in most of the challenging terrains of development. So we welcome him immensely. And of course, our Oluwole Alabi, who is also a very distinguished smart head, I'll call him, and have not really stopped by loving his beards. I'm told that beards and hairs in the head, are equivalent to the knowledge realms, that you have in you, especially when they get white like that of Deji Hastrop, then you really have to stay and bow. Last but not the least, our speakers, Dr. Wumi Hassan. Of course, Dr. Wumi Hassan, one of our board of directors, is an inspirational Amazon in this ecosystem of telecoms and technology. And of course, she's continuing to drive the resilience that is needed for all the ladies out there, for all the girl child out there, for all the princesses out there, and of course, very significant, impacting the homes with technology, because the future of work starts really from home. And that's means that the education threshold has changed. We're going to hear a lot from the speakers, and we rely on their valuable input to be able to ensure that we can get the best. If I said or I've said what I've said and following, indeed, we must recognize that the theme of this webinar is so significant, because when you talk about sustainability in what we do, it's not just sustainability in the air you breathe, which of course creates sanity for your brain. It's also sustainability of attitude. You ask yourself, can you really galvanize and get to the target part of your life, of a nation's life, if you don't have a change of attitude that is endorsed, to be satisfactory with the rest of the world? Whatever you do, attitude counts. And that character probably is what we are going to hear from some of our speakers here, because character in technology as well, goes a long way to determine transparency. When you talk about transparency, credibility, in terms of the buzzword in our elections, these are the milestones that we look forward to in building a resilient nation, and of course, adopting technology in doing that. Equity also comes to play, and the audacity of collaboration, empathy. All these are building blocks for sustainable development. But while we focus on that sustainable development 1.6, we should be able to ensure that we come to terms with the challenges that is facing us internally as a country, and of course, intertwine with the expectations of the world. I want to believe that we are, or when I say we are, the global community is running a knowledge Olympiad. That's the race. We've stopped that of the track and field. The knowledge Olympiad challenges us to ensure that we outperform our former stance. So we want to ensure that while we are moving forward, we give the best. And TTSG, as you know, is a world reputed organization, and we want to make sure that we can deliver the best of breed in what we are doing. The parting shot, especially to our speakers, and I want to emphasize, really, we are talking about data. We are talking about data. We know that data has become second to oxygen as the most important element of life. Without data, of course, we won't be able to have the attribute of what we want. So I want to welcome each and every one of you. And once we think data, let us interrogate the situation of the national population data, the national population census. Can you really govern a nation that you don't have the accurate national population census? I want to part with that. I want to wish us well. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris. That was a very sterling welcome address. You highlighted a number of issues, and you've actually pricked our curiosity for this webinar. Personally, I'm highly curious, and my appetite has really been whetted by the things you have said. And I believe that has helped us to set the pace for what to expect today. So I want to urge everyone on board to please expect to come away from this session with information, fresh insight, perspectives from the experts we have on board. And also please prepare your questions, because we have a section dedicated for questions and answer. I'd like you to make use of the Q&A box right there. Please prepare your questions. And once we open up the question and answer session, we'll be glad to treat them accordingly. Thank you very much, Dr. Chris, for that very sterling welcome address. We appreciate you. All right. All right then. So I would just acknowledge the presence of a few more people. I know we have people joining from all across the world. We have Benjamin Salako from Ottawa, Canada. We have Juliet Ibekaku Nwagu from African Center for Governance and Sustainable Development, Abuja. We have Ayedo Stephen from Federal Inland Revenue Service, Lekki, Lagos. We have Kabir from Victoria Island. We have Pamela joining us from Lagos, Mariam from Aja, Lagos. We have Sani Yao from Kano, Nigeria. We have Helen Udoewa from Backbone Connectivity Network, and that is one of the members of TTSWG. So we celebrate you as well. We have Yekini Kolawole from Aja. We have a whole host of people. I can see we have Dr. Mfo Kuaho. Please pardon me about your name. Dr. Mfo is joining us all the way from Botswana. We have Biodun Shotola from Ibadan. We have Hamza Liu from Kogi State, Grassroots Advancement in Nigeria. So we have quite a broad spectrum of an audience here with us this morning. And I feel it's really important for us to just build on the momentum Dr. Chris has set by doing an introduction to what TTSWG is. I believe that will help us set the pace for the discussion we're going to be having. May I also mention that this webinar is being streamed live via our Facebook platform and our YouTube platform. So please endeavor to share to others and join. And in the meantime, you can make use of the Q&A box to input your comments and also for questions. We also have Miss Yemisi Ransom Kuti joining us from Lagos. It's a pleasure to have you here. All right, so without further ado, I will be sharing my screen, and I would just go into a discussion about TTSWG. TTSWG is a novel initiative. There is a story I love to tell whenever I want to introduce TTSWG to someone. And I'm so glad because we have so many luminaries from the oil sector in Nigeria joining us this morning. So about 60 years ago, when oil was struck at Oloibiri, please, can we confirm if we can see the screen being shared? Oh, beautiful. So about 60 years ago, when oil was struck at Oloibiri, there was joy in the land and people were rejoicing. 60 years later, we have so many challenges in the Niger Delta, and Nigeria as a nation. We have environmental pollution across board. We have issues that range from community relations. We have insecurity widespread. We have oil bunkering, oil theft. We have the corruption that surrounds that as well. And there's just a whole issue surrounding the Niger Delta in Nigeria that we had to have a development commission specially created for that region of the country, just to mitigate the effect of the exploration of oil. And just last year, we got some statistics from the federal government that the ICT sector now contributes a greater quota to the Nigerian economy than oil and gas. So in essence, the ICT sector appears to be the next oil for Nigeria. So if the ICT sector will be the next oil for Nigeria to power the Nigerian economy for years to come, then it's important for us to begin to think about sustainability issues now, because these sustainability issues are things that led to the experience we have with oil and gas in the Niger Delta, and even still affecting Nigeria till date. So essentially, if we can put that in context, we'll see how important it is for us to have an initiative like TTSWG, and that is the Telecommunication and Technology Sustainability Working Group. So TTSWG essentially is a multi-stakeholder network. I will just be doing a summary as I run through the slides. A multi-stakeholder network of actors in the telecommunication and technology sector of Nigeria. And we have actors in the private sector. We have our member organizations like IHS Nigeria, MTN Nigeria, Backbone Connectivity Network, and a host of them. We have 21 plus members and counting. We also have partners in the public sector, because we understand that if we want to make sustainable change, then it has to be a multi-sectoral approach, and there has to be agreement across board. So we have the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Information. We have NESRIA. We have NASENI, that's the institute that has to do with engineering, science and innovation. And we have NIGECOMSAT and a host of other public sector stakeholders. And the essence of what we do at TTSWG is to build the narrative and thought leadership towards sustainability in the telecommunication and technology sector. We understand that this sector affects virtually everybody, because virtually everyone who is joining us with a device, with a digital device. So that means you hold ICT in your hands. And as technology continues to evolve with artificial intelligence, we now have ChatGPT and all, it is going to continue to play an increasingly dominant role in our lives. So more than ever before, we need to start thinking about sustainability, and that is what TTSWG does with our thought leadership initiatives like this webinar we are having right now, to just build conversations and then around that. So this here is a montage of some of our members that I mentioned and still counting. And then we have our board members. The board for TTSWG is chaired by Engineer Mohammed Abduwaya. We also have on board Dr. Mrs. Wumi Hassan. We have Dr. Chris Uwaje, who graciously gave us the welcome address. And we have Iklimatu Abubakar Ramalan. She's a techpreneur. And we can see that she's also young, because we understand the importance of having youth represented in the decision-making process for the ICT sector. We also have Professor Francis Idachaba. So as I said earlier, our vision is to champion a sustainable and profitable telecoms and technology sector for national development. And our mission is to ingrain sustainability systems in telecoms and technology sector through capacity building, standard setting, and associating. So virtually everyone joining us right now, and everyone streaming via Facebook and YouTube platforms, you are relevant to TTSWG, because what we do concerns you. So long as you access the internet, or you're one way or the other, you are a beneficiary of that. So the membership benefits for TTSWG, I will just briefly run through this as I round up this section. Access to networking opportunities with other industry players and regulators, the opportunity to define the sustainability direction for the sector. We have practical understanding of sustainability and how to ingrain that into your organization. We have opportunity to share resources. We do resource sharing, and you can also have access to a large pool of resources, and as well align your business model with international standards. So thank you very much. So essentially, that does it about what we are in TTSWG. And I will continue to make reference to that even as we build in this webinar. So I would just want to just take a little highlight to just acknowledge a few more people. We have Ayo Okelano from Clean Nation Foundation. We have Abigail Ogbonna from Jos Plateau State. We have Asmao Smiler from IHS Abuja. We have Tunji Ladibolu from Ogba Lagos, Ijeoma Deniyi from Ekiti State. So we go into the crux of the day, and that is our webinar. So the webinar is essentially born out of the urgency of what we're experiencing in the nation presently. We recently had our presidential elections, and you would agree that ICT was a key issue in the elections, both for communications and also for the BVAS system that was introduced. And these are still issues that are being heavily discussed and heavily focused on across board. So we felt it's very important for us to be able to tap into that to see how indeed ICT can drive sustainable governance in Nigeria. And this is something that virtually everyone can relate with, because we are looking at it from the technical end, how ICT drives sustainable governance, software systems, technology that will improve governance and ease of administration. We're also looking at it from the human end, where we have young people who are actively championing ICT, making use of social media platforms, during the campaigns to advance their candidates, brook various discussions. We have issues of hate speech. We have issues of false news and a number of things like that. And this is being driven because we have ICT widespread. So that's also another aspect of it that has to do with youth participation in ICT that we're tapping into. And also there is the ethical perspective to it. The fact that what you are doing, is it right? There is the need to be able to ingrain ethics into advocacy. So yes, you want to achieve something, but what is the means by which it's going to be achieved? And we are ingraining all of that into our discussion. And I'm delighted to introduce our panel to us this morning. So firstly, I will be introducing our first speaker, who is Mr. Deji Hastrop. So Mr. Deji Hastrop is an experienced veteran. He has 20 plus years experience in the oil sector. He has been involved in government relations. He has been involved in good governance advocacy, not just on a national level in Nigeria, but on a continental level and globally. He's presently the Director of Good Governance Africa, SADC Board, South Africa. And he brings to this discussion a wealth of experience in government relations, community engagement, stakeholder engagement, and good governance advocacy. So Mr. Deji Hastrop, I will just hand over the podium to you to give us a few opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Isaac. I hope everyone can hear me. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, clearly.
Thank you very much. It gives me a great pleasure to participate in this event. And I want to start by thanking Dr. Chris Uwaje for his very generous introduction, as well as Isaac for all the good work that went into the planning of this. The topic of our conversation this morning has been of long-term interest to me, and it's one that has become, as Isaac said, increasingly relevant in recent times. Let me start with an American story, even though our focus is on Nigeria. This is because the story almost perfectly illustrates several aspects of the subject of our interest this morning. And to a certain extent, it also mimics aspects of the Nigerian variant. The last two presidential elections won by Republican Party candidates in the United States have been controversial. In 2000, George W. Bush, governor of the state of Texas and the eldest son of the 41st president of the United States, ran for office against Al Gore, the incumbent vice president. The result was delayed, and even though the electronic machines used for conducting the elections had been tested several times ahead of the polls, there were several complaints about its performance. In the state of Florida, where early results showed that Bush had won by a very, very narrow margin, a manual recount was ordered according to state electoral law. This was followed by a month-long series of court battles that ended with a narrow 5-4 decision at the US Supreme Court. And the judgment went in favor of George Bush. It was one of the most controversial elections in US history. Al Gore won more than 500,000 more of the people's votes than George Bush, who was declared the winner. This is because in the American electoral law, winning elections does not depend on the popular vote, but an electoral college. Despite the use of electronic technologies, manual counting in the state of Florida ended up determining the eventual winner. Even though the loser won over 500,000 more votes than his opponent, he still lost. Since then, the two even more controversial elections have been held both in 2016 and 2020. And these have highlighted the issues that we're dealing with this morning. In 2016, nearly 3 million more Americans cast their vote for the Democratic Party candidate Hillary Clinton than her opponent, Donald Trump. But Clinton lost that election in the Electoral College. 4 years later, the outcome will be even more controversial. The winner of that election was Joe Biden, the current president. Biden had won over 7 million more votes than his opponent, Donald Trump. But the loser rejected the outcome, claiming that he actually won by a landslide. Donald Trump went to court, and on 60 different occasions, the electoral petitions were thrown out. Despite this, Trump and his supporters have continued to claim that he was the winner and that the process was fraught with widespread electronic fraud. As we speak, Dominion Machines, the company responsible for the voting machines used during the controversial elections, has sued one of America's most popular television networks, Fox News, for defamation. Fox propagated the false claim of widespread electronic fraud and a Trump win. Now, if Dominion should be successful in the court and the court grants its request for Fox News to pay $1.6 billion US, that would be the highest payout by any broadcast network in US history. These cases have thrown up many important questions that are no doubt relevant to Nigeria and other democracies around the world. How can democracy be deepened if candidates with fewer popular votes continue to be declared winners over those with more of the people's votes? How can the electorate trust the electronic technologies used during elections and the eventual outcomes of such elections when accusations of voter fraud, manipulation are spread and propagated by candidates that lose elections? Why resort to manual vote counting when there is a dispute between candidates after we've invested so much in electronic systems? What can we do to deepen democracy and good governance in the foreseeable future? How can we leverage the enormous potential of electronic technology, ICT, in the future of democracy and sustainable governance? These are important questions, one which we all must grapple with as we go into these conversations. Following the 2023 presidential elections in Nigeria, somewhat similar questions are being asked. But having said that, let's be clear about one thing. Elections are very important aspects of democracy, but democracy doesn't start or end with elections, with voting. Democracy and sustainable good governance are more than elections alone. And in order that we have a common understanding of the subject we will be discussing, I'd like for us to break it down to its elementary parts, ICT and its role in democracy and sustainable governance. Of course, by ICT, we mean the very soul, as Dr. Waje has said, of contemporary culture and civilization. The technologies of information and communication, they are the soul of our existence as human civilizations. They contribute to almost every aspect of our lives. So they are extremely important in our understanding of it. But technologies are a tool designed to enhance human life. And unless we maximize and optimize their potential, they will either benefit us or cause us more difficulties. And that's why interrogating the ethics, the attitude of the users and subscribers to these technologies have become exceedingly important in our time. I would like to stop there and welcome other comments as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. D. Hastrop. That was a very insightful delivery. From your discussion, you actually have opened us up to the vast implication of ICT, particularly as it concerns governance. And that's so important because governance virtually sets the tone for every other aspect, virtually every other aspect of society. So it makes the rules, it sets the pace. So if ICT is being ingrained and incorporated into a very vital aspect of governance, which is elections, which is democracy, selection of leaders, then it beckons for a closer look, because essentially this has the potential to make or mar any nation. And you've really highlighted that. And I believe that has whetted the appetite of our listeners, our audience, and they are appetizing, like they're eager to get to know more about this. So we're going to get into the kernel of the matter shortly, but then I'd love to introduce our second panelist in person of Dr. Wumi Hassan. So Dr. Wumi Hassan is an IT professional par excellence. She has vast experience in advocacy of ICT for young people. She's presently president of and CEO of High Tech Center for Nigerian Women and Youth. She has done extensive work in research and policy making that has affected, positively impacted the major ICT institutions in the country. And Dr. Wumi Hassan also happens to be distinguished member of the board of TTSWG. So we're going to allow for a few opening remarks if it will be possible. But if not, we would move on forward shortly. So Dr. Wumi, perhaps if you are able to give a few opening remarks. All right. Okay. In that case, we're going to move on. Dr. Wumi had hinted earlier that there was.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here again. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Professor Astrop, for that delightful presentation. And I want to celebrate our own oracle, the father of tech in the house this morning, Dr. TTSWG. Thank you, sir, for being who you are all the time. The issue on ground is about ICT for sustainable development. I'm using the opportunity to say Happy New Year to everybody in TTSWG. Happy New Year to all of us. And we have heard from the previous speaker, the obvious issues around governance and the electioneering procedure in Nigeria is here with us. And I really want to lay credence to the fact that some years back, just about less than 10 years from now, with the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology and UNDP as development partners, there was a policy that was put together, which I was privileged to be a part of that consulting work. And it was simply around the fact that we can come up with ICT for good governance and electoral processes. Very deeply well-stated strategies and plans. Unfortunately, I'm not sure the integration of that policy was well entrenched. I remember very recently before the election, I was privileged to be speaking with the Senate Committee Chair on election in Nigeria, and he got a copy of that policy from me. We came up with so many strategic plans of what it is possible to do as an advocacy to ensuring that our election that we are going through now isn't what we are seeing. And I quite remember that a multi-stakeholder group also came through the University of Nasarawa, and then we were able to discuss election matters. But what is it about ICT for sustainability for us? And that is the fact that as much as we have seen what we have experienced in the last couple of weeks, we still have a long way to go. And when we say we have a long way to go, it's on governance. It's on how our political class sees ICT. And if you permit me to say that for the tech community, for TTSWG, we have quite a lot to do in serious advocacy, in serious awareness, in serious, ensuring that we give these wonderful leaders an opportunity to appreciate what exactly technology does. We know that there are politicking, and there's always a politics of the policies, but at the same time, for us to move forward, for us to develop, we really need to make sure that our policies work, and that they will only work better when we give ICT the place that it should have. And so for me, this discussion this morning, interestingly, I'm actually engaged with the NCC today as they look into the data, what I call data depletion, that is a major crisis already in the country. And as been discussed by Dr. TTSWG, the issues around data is a major challenge. And so for the kind of information that we have across everywhere, we realized that it is becoming so difficult, even for the government regulatory bodies, to manage the stakeholders. And that is a big issue, because when we don't have a policy drive that enables everyone to have what I would call a level playing ground, when everyone cannot see what is possible with their development, with their equity, with whatever they are putting on the ground, either as a businessman or as an end user, then there is a challenge. And so for me, I want to believe that our advocacy point needs to kickstart. We don't want to wait too long, because when you see what we are seeing around how leaders want to emerge to become anything in Nigeria, then we know that we have a big gap. And one of the things I've said over and over is that when Nigerians are not aware of the policies, we cannot even blame those who are supposed to be implementing, in quotes, because the implementation of all policies is supposed to be done by every one of us. We are supposed to be all committed to it. So if we are not aware, if we don't have a copy of such policies, if we don't even know how it affects you or affects what you do or your sector, then we have a big problem. So when we leave the ball at the, because I remember when that policy came out and the advocacy stakeholders meeting were going on from one sector to the other, we saw that quite a lot of government institutions were taken aback. There was a lot of open confrontational statements like, are you guys going to take away what we do in our different ministries and agencies and all of that? And the question isn't that we want to take away what they are doing, but to let them see that technology can enhance what you're doing. And so that dichotomy, and I quite, because I had gotten involved with so many policy process. And I remember when the science, technology, and innovation policy was actually being carried out in 2012 also, now being reviewed, and I'm sure we have a new policy already with the ministry. That was a battle. There was a battle between the education ministry and the FMST. Why? Because the education felt that when you talk about R&D, it is their prerogative. No, institutions, private organizations, everyone is engaged in R&D. We have a lot of knowledge institutions across the country. And so there's the synergy, what I call the integration of some of this agenda is where we have a challenge. And I want to believe at the end of, this is a great starting point for TTSWG this year. I look forward to ensuring that we begin to see the thin line, what I call those missing links, those gaps that we can identify that is affecting everyone wherever they are, and then we can begin to step in as an advocate to say, this is the way things should be. We can't stop talking about it. You see, the population of Nigeria, like Dr. Chris started with, we are over 200 million people. You know, when we compare Nigeria with some countries, I smile because some of those countries are not even as large as some of the states in Nigeria. And some of them, we need to understand that the diversities we have, the cultural issues, the religious issues, they are very big. We were on a live radio program recently, and someone from the Muslim religion called in to harass us about why should we talk to women about IT? Why must they use ICT? Do we want to pollute them? So you could see the that is in Abuja. This is not from any bush or any local level, you know. So you could see the mentality. We have a lot of integrating. We have a lot of reorientation. We need to let people see that these issues around IT for development, it is for the good of everyone. And so I want to just submit at this point that yes, there are policies. Yes, we know that some of these policies are fantastic. They're great. But if Nigerians are not understanding this meaning of these things, if government people, those who are policymakers, in a recent few years, we heard that as if Facebook wanted to let the assembly members, you know, have a section on social media utilization. They ignored it. To them, what is their wahala with that? How has that got to do with them? What kind of portfolio they carry? But the question is, those are basic things, and that is why digital literacy is not a. We are not supposed to continue to feel like it doesn't affect us. There are too many things that people assume in Nigeria that we know. But I have seen in the last couple of years of my engagements as an NGO practitioner that many people really don't know. So this is why I think that discussing this further, we need to look at integration of policies to the system, to different sectors. Number two, we need to think of reskilling and reorientation. And this is very important. And of course, to the knowledge institution, we have not started. We have not started. We can't continue to see what is going on in developed economies. And they say, oh, this is happening in US, this is happening in China, this is happening everywhere, it must happen here. It doesn't happen like that. Our environment is different. We need to look into what is it about our environment. How do we ensure that the needs for this environment is making a difference? Thank you so much for my time for now. I actually have to be on the run. So the next event. Thank you. Maybe when there are questions, I'm actually still online. I can always take them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Umi Hassan. Dr. Umi Hassan came so passionately about this. You know, as she began to speak, she just began to widen the scope, and she set the ball rolling in the direction of the internal workings of policy making in Nigeria, how it affects the ICT policies and how that affects governance, and may I say the politics around that policy, and how we are, one way or the other, at the receiving end of that. She mentioned something very important, and that is the fact that while we have a multitude of policies in Nigeria, there is minimal, or we have little understanding amongst the citizenry, that's amongst the people, about what these policies actually mean. So, and I may say that it may be because of the, you know, an average person will say, I'm just doing my hustle. In Nigeria, it's just about just trying to make a means, you know, trying to make a living. So why worry about all this big stuff when the real problems are right there? But then we understand that those things eventually affect even the economic outlook of the country. And Dr. Umi Hassan has really given us a very clear look at that. You know, when she mentioned the matters regarding the election policies, ICT integration, it just made me begin to itch here, because we have here Mr. Oluwole Asalu. And before I bring him on board, I just want to acknowledge a few more people who have joined us. I can see we have Kenneth from Lagos. We have Niyi Ajetumobi from Najcom Technologies Limited, also a TTSWG member. And we have with us Onyebuchi Nweke from A Little Sleep, A Little Slumber Empowerment Outreach. We have with us Abubakar Abdullahi from Gumi Local Government, Zamfara State. I'm just doing these mentions to just show us the vast reach of this webinar, both nationally and internationally as well. And okay, we've had a number of comments, and I want to encourage you to please keep engaging. Interestingly enough, we have a prize that will be given to those who engage the most, so people with the highest engagements on the chat box. So by your comments, your questions, and your responses. So we have prizes, so we'll look at it and then we'll select those with the highest engagement, and we have about 2 or 3 of them, and we have a prize that would be given. So we'll do that as we begin to round up. But right now I need to turn the spotlight on Mr. Oluwole Asalu, because we've heard from the governance and ethical advocacy perspective that Mr. Deji Hastro presented. We've heard from Dr. Umi Hassan. She's been involved in policy making and also advocacy as well. But Mr. Oluwole Asalu happens to be a CEO of a leading technology company in Africa. So he comes on board from the perspective of someone who has the technical knowledge. He has had vast experience in technology services for government and solutions across the various sectors of the economy. He's also a management consultant, and he has pioneered various initiatives tailored towards spreading tech usage in Nigeria. And also, you know, he's committed to developing young leaders in Africa on building healthy and enduring organizations by using design thinking principle. So I can recall our last encounter, my last encounter with Mr. Oluwole, and there were certain comments he made that actually set the ball rolling on the perspective of the technology companies to some of these issues that are being discussed. So I believe it will be very good, because while we talk about tech advocacy and all, we might as well get to hear from the people behind the scenes who actually come up with some of these softwares, some of these platforms that are rolled out. And that will really put some spice to the wonderful discussion we have brewing here. So Mr. Oluwole Asalu, please, we'll take your opening remarks right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, all. I'd like to thank management, the board and management of TTSW for inviting me. I was shocked to.
All right.
Yes, I was shocked to receive this, and I'm happy to be in the midst of the Oracle himself. So I first met the Oracle in 1999, and every time, so once I heard his voice, I had to run and look for a pen, because every time I interact with the Oracle, I have to take notes. So I already quickly started taking notes. So thank you very much, sir, for paving the way, for all that you do for us, even in ISPON and NCS. You're still a leading light, and we're always grateful for continually setting the pace. Just from your opening remarks, I already changed what I wanted to talk about. I definitely was going to talk about technology and how its adoption, but just listening to the Oracle, I just realized that he had hit the nerve, which we've been pushing on for years, and it's a change of attitude towards the adoption of technology. So thank you very much, sir. The trust of what I will speak about today would change to how we can use technology to change the attitude of Nigerians to demand better accountability from systems. Thank you also to Dr. Hastrop. It's a pleasure to meet with you. And I did pick a very important line from your statement. It says, democracy doesn't stop and end with elections alone. And that has always been my belief as well. And our belief is elections are just one side of it. I can tell you that in China, it doesn't matter who the president is. There is a system in place. There are processes that ensure that the roadmap of the country, the roadmap of where the country wants to be, is strictly adhered to. So it doesn't matter who really sits on the top. Those policies have already been defined by an institute, the Beijing Institute, and it's strictly followed. So thank you very much, Dr. Deji Hastrop. This also falls back to what I spoke about, which is change of an attitude towards the adoption of technology. Thank you, Dr. Wumi Hassan, as well, being on the panel with you. We have interfaced and interacted on whether various forums, indirectly or directly, because we've also tried as we are to deploy technology solutions in the public sector space, because we felt that that was where policy was playing a major role. Right from 2007, we've been deploying technology solutions in the public sector space. Not as successful as we would like, because sometimes the policies, like you say, are documented but not implemented. Sometimes they are documented, but it doesn't exist. It's just a piece of document somewhere. So thank you very much, Ma. It's a pleasure to be in this panel. And I really would also like to pick on everything I'm going to talk about today will be more around how technology can play that role. However, we have to change the attitude. The attitude of Nigerians are the smartest people in the world. Nigerians are, and it shows even according to UN demographics of adoption of technology. So Nigerians can use and adopt technologies. Look at its usage of Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and all of that. So adoption is not the problem. It's the attitude behind the adoption. So if the same technology that you use and you utilize, you realize that, you know what, and then you use that technology not for militancy and activism, or like it happens on social media, but you use it to hold your leaders more accountable. You know, you hold your leaders more accountable by requesting and accessing information. There is a website, the Department of Financial Services. It's in Florida. From this website, every taxpayer can track government spending, get access to all their financial reports, receipts, local receipts and disbursements, and even contracting. So according to the United Nations, e-governance can reduce corruption by over 25%. So is it that we are not seeing these things? Like Dr. Hassan said, most of the government the public sector representatives will say, are you trying to take our jobs? And the answer is no, we're trying to help your job migrate from the analog way it used to be done and bring in some more level of efficiency and transparency and accuracy. So I look forward to this discussion. With our engagement with very young people over time, we engage a lot with very young people. We're just trying to move the attitudinal outlook to adopting technology to produce better results. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oluwole. That was spot on. And you have actually pricked my curiosity even more because you've given us a dimension that has to do with the attitudinal change to ICT in Nigeria, which is very important at this moment. So just before we press on, I'd like to just recognize a few more people who have joined us in the course of your meeting. I can see we have Kwapel Moses Manyan. We have Ijeoma Adeni from Ekiti State. We have Tunji Ladibolu from Oba, Lagos. And let me just take this moment to make a brief announcement. So we have a sponsored giveaway on the webinar today. There's a sponsored giveaway, and giveaway is being sponsored by Zenra Consulting, one of our partners. And they're going to be giving away 20,000 naira worth launch vouchers for two. That is redeemable in cash. That's within the country. 20,000 launch vouchers for two, and it's been sponsored by Zenra Consulting. And in order to be able to qualify for this, you need to be one of our top engagers, top three engagers on our Zoom channel, the chat section. So you just need to keep engaging, liking, making comments, and just following up the discussion. And then you'd also need to follow us on Instagram at TTSWG. I'll take that again. You need to follow us on Instagram at TTSWG. So the observation in order to spot the top three engagers will end by 11:30. So that will end by 11:30. So I would want to urge you to just keep on engaging, keep on following the discussion, and terms and conditions, of course, apply because this is being sponsored by a partner of TTSWG. So thank you very much. We press forward in our conversation. Dr. Hastrup, I think at this point, we need to really zoom in on the issue of elections administration. And we also need to look at the aspects that concerns advocacy, because you made mention of the issue with Judge Bush when he was, there was someone who said that he was not elected, but it was a Supreme Court appointed. He was a Supreme Court appointed president because of the controversy that surrounds that. In our time now, this is years after that experience, we have a much more active social media community. We have narratives that lead the chant. During the presidential elections, we had those who were for the articulated, we had the Batified, we had the obedient movement, we had the Kwakwansia as well, if I may just highlight the four leading frontrunners in the elections. And, we had different narratives coming from both sections. And we had just a whole lot of traffic conversations being built. I just want to pick you up on that and say, what are some of the ethical considerations that should be, carried and that we should bear in mind when we are advancing good governance advocacy, either through the use of ICT or because we want a certain candidates to be elected to a certain position? What are the ethical considerations we should bear in mind? Is it all is fair? All is fair, or is there a much more ethical way to approach this?
Thank you very much, Isaac. A couple of comments before I get into the questions that you have raised. Both Dr. Or is it Professor Hassan and Mr. Asalu gave me titles that do not belong to me. I'm neither a professor or a doctor. So I just, for the sake of transparency and accountability, which is the bedrock of good governance, I thought I ought to make that very clear, but I thank you very much. Now, a couple of comments before I get into the questions. First of all, I think that if we want to deepen the attitude of our people towards technology, we should consider digital literacy as a primary school curriculum subject. I think our young people should start learning about data and technology right from a very young age. They should become so familiar with it and understand its enormous potential and what uses is possible with technology, so that by the time they become adults and start work, they would not be afraid of technology taking over their jobs. They would not. They would embrace it because it's something that is a part and parcel of who they are. A very good model is what happens in Japan. Little kids of 3 and 4 years old start being introduced to information technology at that age. And it's something that we should consider. Another subject is democracy. I call it democracy for idiots. We should start teaching our little ones about democracy when they are still so young. The attitude of adults of winner takes all, we must do everything to win elections, it doesn't matter what happens, all of that would be a thing of the past if people learn from a very early age what is the true meaning of democracy. It is not just about acquisition of power, where political parties just want to grab power, but it is about the governance of people. How do we administer the resources equitably so that every citizen feels that he or she is getting a fair share? How do we ensure that the services that every citizen has a right to request from government is given to government? How do we deepen democracy so that every citizen can, just as Mr. Asalu said, go into a portal and find out what exactly is happening to the taxpayers' money? How is a particular ministry meeting the expectations of the citizens? Because you see, government is not in a position to rule people. Democracy is simply defined as a government of the people, for the people, by the people, which means it has to be inclusive. It has to be participatory. Every member of society should have equal access, both to the ability to elect their representatives, as well as to hold their representatives accountable to them for daring to present themselves for the positions for official positions that they are elected for. So these are the key elements for deepening sustainable governance in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole, is that we have to promote and advocate for inclusive participation and from a very early age. And in my view, those are two critical elements that should be included in the curriculum from very early on: digital literacy and democracy for idiots. Thank you. Did I get to the questions after all?
Oh, well, I think you actually began to delve into that, and there was something very iconic you mentioned, and that's democracy for idiots. And the moment you said that, the chats went buzzing. The chats went buzzing, and because the very concept and idea is really interesting. So while we are on that, I think I'll just hold that thought for a moment and come to Mr. Oluwole Asalu. So we have a whole range of questions that we're going to take in the question and answer session. I may just delve into that now, but there is a question that is being on our mind, and that has to do with voters registration. So we had the elections. We had, people having to register for their PVC in Nigeria, and you have to go and collect your PVC. We have another one called NIN, National Identity Number. We have another one called BVN, Bank Verification Number. So essentially, we have three main identification systems in Nigeria. We also have that for the driver's license. And the question is, wouldn't it be possible for us to just have a synergy of all this? Something like what they have in India with the Aadhaar system, where once you have your Aadhaar number, you can make use of it across board. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you very much. By virtue of being on various projects, I do know that used to be on the pipeline or on the framework with which there was supposed to be a harmonization by the Joint Tax Board that was leading the project at that time. That was probably about 8 to 9 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that there's a plan to harmonize. Now, the harmonizing of this data is where there has been the challenge. Some agencies have felt if you harmonize this data, similar to what Dr. Hassan said, they feel if you harmonize this data, we will become irrelevant, and then some would feel, well, there has to be superiority on ownership of the data. But I know that it's challenging, but I can't speak for government, but I know that it was in the plan to harmonize all this data. So you have one single source of truth, one single ID, which it's how it should be. I will tell you, Ghana has successfully implemented this now. Ghana has one single source of ID. Ghana has even gone a step further. You can even fly into Ghana with your Ghana ID, your Ghana card. So any service you're consuming in Ghana now, you'd have to quote your Ghana ID. Not only Ghana, but a couple of other countries. So Nigeria can, it's like I said, it's just the will to be able to do this. It's one thing to say, we know what needs to be done. How do you get people's attitudes to align with doing things the right way or the way it should be done? Like I said, that Nigerians are very brilliant people. We have very brilliant minds. And I do not think that achieving this is rocket science. If we want to achieve this in 9 months, we would definitely do this in less than 9 months. We can harmonize all our IDs into one single document. Yes.
It's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Oluwole. I think that about sums that up on that, because that's been a question I believe will be on the mind of so many Nigerians about the multiple identification channels that we have. So I'm still holding on to that thought that Mr. Deji Hastrop, dropped, and that is democracy for idiots. That's like a buzzword for this webinar. So, but right now, I think I'll just go to Dr. Wumi Hassan. And while holding on to that word, Dr. Wumi Hassan, we understand that in Nigeria, education is not just in the sole jurisdiction of the government. We have government schools. We also have private institutions. We have educational institutions, and we have civil society organizations across the board. So what specific roles do you think they can play in digital literacy, in ICT education and orientation for young Nigerians? Is there something you may want to answer?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I hope there is not too much background noise interference from here. I'm
No,
actually
we
in
can
the
receive
hall.
you clearly.
Good. Okay, so what is going on in a lot of intervention had been existing on digital literacy that is beyond governments and beyond the schools. Several NGOs are involved, but you see, like Mr. Astrop said, or is it Mr. Asala? One of the things that we have as a problem in Nigeria, and I say it because having run an NGO for the last 19 years, I have seen that while we are meant to be systemic in administering digital literacy, I still see a lot of dichotomy in what we're doing. And I feel that for once, we should harmonize what exactly it is about digital literacy. I've seen some of our colleagues who came around with different curriculum from different Western countries, which is not a bad idea. I really don't have problem with that. And then unfortunately, it is a game of who can give more to the government circle, who is supposed to be the regulatory body. And so what I'm saying is that if the curriculum we are running for digital literacy is something that is not going to benefit any child, any adult, when they are done with learning.
Okay. I think Dr. Umi Hassan may have had a slight technical glitch there. So we'll just hold on to that thought while she reconnects back. But then in the moment, I think I will just open the line. So please, I can see questions already coming into the Q&A section. So I want to urge you to please keep dropping your questions. And I will begin to take questions from there. Oh, okay. We have Dr. Umi Hassan.
All of that
We lost you for
are
like
the
10
questions.
seconds now.
Yes. Sorry. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Should I continue, please?
Yes, please.
Yes. So if we notice that we have quite a lot of us in that spectrum, and there are quite a lot of us that we have done a lot of things, then the question is, why is Nigeria still what we are? So if my brother that spoke about how they've deployed to many government institutions, sir, can I tell you that some of your colleagues, IT people in none of these MDAs, they are not even happy with you. As far as they are concerned, you are taking their jobs. So what are we talking about is the fact that as much as IT or digital literacy is for education, the question is, what skills are we teaching? What is it going to do with what we are doing in Nigeria and how we are supposed to develop the country? Because when you see today, I am always not feeling good when I see young people who tell me about the apps they have created, they have learned coding, they have done so many things. And you see that in some of those apps, you will see $sign that they have not edited properly. So you will see that it's a copy and pasting. So we cannot move forward like that. The intervention, yes, the interventions that we really need in governance and in electoral process, it's an advocacy that as tech people, we shouldn't just speak on social media or in webinars like this. We should be at the forefront of issues with the government people, with politicians. All of this mess that we have seen in the last couple of weeks, and I see in one platform, NCS president said this, I say it is too late to talk. It is too late. We should have been talking since. We should have insisted that as professionals, as tech people, whatever they want to use, we must certify it. And interestingly, our members, CPN, NCS, they are the ones in IMEC office. They are our staff people. What is the role of the professional bodies in ensuring that whatever technology they are using there, we are aware of it, we are certifying it? This is the issue. So we need to take the skill acquisition, the pedagogy for teaching must be different. And the approach to teaching this, even to the primary school child, must be a product mindset, not just a learning mindset. We can learn, everybody can learn. But at the end of the day, what products, what services are we going to deliver? What solutions are we going to challenge? This is my suggestion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umi Hassan. That's a very sterling submission. I held on to the word product mindset. So it shouldn't just be about learning. It should be about learning to create solutions and to understand the solutions that have been put in place. I just wanted to draw attention to the question and answer section that is open, and we are taking questions right now. So if you have a question for any of the speakers, please feel free to drop it in. I can see that engagement has been ongoing. The chat rooms are buzzing wildly. And I just want to urge you to keep on your engagement. By 11:30 sharp, the selection for the giveaway by one of our sponsors, General Consulting, that is giving away 20,000 Naira launch vouchers, redeemable to 2, will be okay. Yes, redeemable to for 2 people. So it's going to be short. The opening slot is going to be short, and we're going to be selecting 3. So it's going to be given to the 3 top engagers. The 3 top engagers are going to be receiving that. So we have just about 6 minutes to go for that. So in case you want to get in on that, I felt I should hammer a little more on that before we turn to conversation. All right. So we have some questions in the Q&A section. We have some questions in the Q&A section. I can see that we have Dr. Chris Uwaje, and I suspect he's about to make some comments. Please, I will plead for permission to just hold on just for a minute or so that I can just do a little housekeeping before I call on you, sir. So like I said, that it's important for us to engage, and then please drop your questions in the question and answer section. And once you have done that, we're going to begin to take the questions and answers shortly, and it will be going to the speakers, the panelists that we have. Mr. DJ Hastrop, the bomb that he set off in the chat room with the word democracy for idiots is still buzzing, and we've had various thoughts from people on that word. So I will just take the input from Dr. Chris Uwaje. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Isaac. I think you have surpassed the credibility range of assessment as being a compare, in such a very important and significant webinar. If it were to be in a university domain, they would start to call you a doctor. And of course, while Mr. Hastrop will now receive a professorship, as it were, of bachelor. So I just wanted to engage the distinguished speakers on 2 critical items. Now, I think the issue is that we need to define the problem. We have spoken to the problem, but it seems we have not defined the problem. And of course, getting close to it is the terminology by Prof, now Doc, now Mr. Hastrop, as idiot democracy, or democracy for idiots. That for me translates into data chaos. What we are defining the problem is Nigeria is in a data chaos. And you need data chaos engineering to be able to manage the process. I mean, data scientists have been built all over the world. That is for this purpose, because there's data chaos. Now you have, as we know, we have unstructured data, structured data, and big data. Within this confluence is human attitude, has been acknowledged by Mr. Hastrop. It is how to ventilate this process. The question is, why are the people in governance using less tech than people that are being governed? So those are questions Asalu, Dr. Azan, and of course, this has to answer. And of course, restoring government and education need a restructured system so that the data can flow. Asalu has said, and of course, if it's challenged with ensuring that he develops a codified employment system in governance using digital interface, where not names are mentioned or flagged in grayscale, but codes are being used to determine on meritorious basis who will be employed. You will change the data narratives. You will change the chaotic environment. You will change the who I know syndrome. You will reduce corruption because data is talking in structured way to be able to govern big data. But you see, tech resides in two different modes. You have tech from the outside and you have tech from the inside. Give it or not, Nigerians are praised on the digital ecosystem because they are consumers of tech from the outside. We have not really interrogated tech from the inside. And on the internet, there are two different things that happens. There are two big C's, the creators and the consumers, two baskets and their revenues. The consumers put into the consumer basket, and the creators take the value from that creativity basket. We need to change the narratives. We need to transform or transit from the consummation of tech to understanding tech from the inside.
From the
And I
inside.
think that's where the data governance, data chaos engineering comes into play. All right. We have series of content in education and books that probably are obsolete. That we need to look at the content issue and how we do that content management. With my shorting part, because I have to beg to leave, my shorting part is that I plead that TTSWG and of course our partners who are listening from worldwide help Nigeria to solicit the advocacy for creating digital museums in 10 local government each, where our kids, before they even get to kindergarten, will go and see the narration and the history of the past, of the digital evolution going forward, so that we can have more inventors, we can have more creativities, we can have more coders. I think that is what I will advocate as being taken on. Thank you very much. Quite appreciate your contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Chris. Thank you very much. That was a very disruptive submission. Dr. Chris has shaken the table, in fact, up to the foundation. And I believe one of the main issues he raised was about data-driven governance, data-driven decision-making, and data-driven, system building, so that we incorporate data. We are not just operating on the nuances of a person's opinion, but rather we are incorporating data to power decision-making, to power systemic building of our systems as a nation, even for the educational sector, the pedagogy for the educational institutions, and across board. And this is a very critical issue he has raised. And then the attitudinal shift, and also the need to bring ICT orientation and learning to young people right from the cradle, so that it's ingrained into them, and not just having a consumer mentality, we just use our phones, but a kind of creation mentality where we understand the internal processes. And, I will just have to make reference again to the buzzword that Mr. Deji Hastrop dropped, and that is democracy for idiots, that sets everywhere buzzing. But before I come back on this question, I want to recognize the presence of pressmen. We have pressmen in the house. We have with us Collins Nwenze. He's an editor for the Nation newspaper, and we just want to acknowledge your presence. We also have other pressmen from other esteemed news houses joining us on the webinar. And we also have TTSWG member organizations joining us. I know a person wanted to know if TTSWG is government owned or if it is private or independent. So TTSWG is independent. We have partners and stakeholders that we collaborate with across board. So TTSWG is independent. It is a multi-stakeholder network of actors in the technology and telecommunication space in Nigeria. So I just want to pick a question, and I think I'm going to throw this question. I'm going to just dwell on it a little because it's packed. So we have a question here from Ms. Yemisi Ransom Kuti, and she wants to know that can you please explain the possible reasons for the glitches in the ICT space during the last elections in Nigeria? And the question is progressive. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to coalesce it, and then I will just dispense it to our various panelists. So can you please explain possible reasons for the glitches in the ICT space? And then the next is, are they enough to discredit the elections and call it the worst elections conducted in Nigeria? So I think on this note, I'll just come to Mr. Deji Hastrop for your take on this very briefly.
So I think that, first of all, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So let me say something that is very fundamental and basic. As I said before, elections are an important part of democracy, but democracy does not start, and neither does it end with elections. The process or processes of government of the people, for the people, by the people, means that making laws, administering justice, promoting youth employment, economic growth and sustainable development, protecting the people against crime and insecurity, delivering services to citizens, and all of that. Those are all encompassing role that government plays in a democracy. And those who are governed should be full participants in that process. You just don't cast your vote and go to sleep, because it does not matter if your candidate turns out to be the one who wins or loses. That's part of the democratic process. You just pick it up from the next day. If your candidate wins, good luck. If he doesn't win, all the best. But whoever wins must be held accountable because he's in office to represent the people. And if you have processes in place that allows the electorate to follow up on the performance of the people in government, then you would have deepened democracy in Nigeria. Now, to go directly to the question about the glitches that occurred during the election, I personally have no idea whatever of what happened. What I tried to do in my opening remarks is to indicate that Nigeria is not unique in this regard. Elections, and I'm sure all of the IT gurus here know this fact, that technology is a tool, and like every tool, it can fail. And you know, sometimes it works perfectly and we're all the better for it. But at some critical moments, things can happen. You know, in the elections that I referred to, George Bush's election, which was the first time that many states in the United States used electronic technology on a widespread scale. They tested these technologies several weeks before the elections, and they did work almost perfectly well. But still, this did not prevent certain glitches from occurring on election day. As a matter of fact, a lot of the queries that was raised by the people to challenge that election was based on the idea that the IT technology failed. And at the end of the day, the Florida recount had to be done manually. You know, so one thing that people must trust technology, but they must understand that it has a potential and a possibility to fail. And when it does, there must be a fallback system. I don't quite understand the detail of what was provided in Nigeria, but one of the things that I think INEC tried to do is to ensure that all political party agents have a copy of the signed results from their polling stations. So this would act as a backup so that when eventually the glitch is corrected, whether or not it is, there is still a valid document that the people can refer to as representing the outcome of the election. So I would say that if we allow the process to play out, if we allow the courts, the Nigerian courts, to hear the cases and bring out all the available evidence, in the end, this would be sorted out. But we all need to understand that technologies are a means to an end. They are not an end in themselves. They are tools that allow more and more people to participate meaningfully in the processes of democracy.
All right.
I mean, so that's what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very insightful, sir. Mr. DJ Hastrop harped on a very important point, and that's the fact that technology, as wonderful as it may seem sometimes, it's still a tool. And like any other tool, it may fail sometimes. And so we have to live with that reality sometimes, even though it will have national impact, and it may not necessarily go well with what we want and what we expect. And then the very fact that democracy itself is a learning process. And I would just want to come to that again. But at this moment, I really want to come to Mr. Oluwole Asalu. So the elections have happened, sir. And I will say the presidential elections. On Saturday, we have the gubernatorial elections. The presidential elections have taken place. We have Nigerians have been very active in the ICT space. They've been very active on social media. They've, channeled, leveraged technology. We had people who were, building platforms by which people could, monitor the flow of events during. We had polls going out, and so many things people have done to creatively use technology in the electoral space. So I really want to know what your thoughts are on the forthcoming election. So what is your advice, I would say, to Nigerians who are mainly in the tech or the ICT space? What are things you think they should consider, maybe in deploying their solutions, or maybe even in making use of the digital device and digital access? So what are your thoughts on that? And this is a question from one of our participants.
Okay, thank you very much, Samuel. So a lot of my advice would be, so my advice to a lot of the aspiring or existing digital practitioners, technology practitioners, would be definitely to continue doing what they're doing with the adoption of technology. From the last elections, we saw that there were a lot of evidences. People were using their phones to record evidences of ongoing malpractices. So all of that can actually fit into evidence for the law courts. They can actually be evidence for even the electoral body to be able to track. For technology solutions, I would encourage and expect that INEC would deepen its technology adoption. We will migrate from the current situation that we have to where votes can go into an application, just as simple as the way you're able to transfer money. So you can have a simple application with a form, and the results are keyed in, and then they are transmitted live. But that is for elections. I did start off saying that our drive for technology should not only be towards the elections. We need to look at governance. We need to look at governance. How do you guarantee governance to Muhammad in Balewa local government in Bauchi? And how do you guarantee governance for someone in Oganama in River State. So basically, if you already know as a government, there's digital penetration is low in some of these areas. There is basically no phone coverage, poor phone coverage, poor data coverages. But there has to be a way with which technology reaches those people, because we can all speak about what we are doing with technology is because we're in the urban areas, and governance needs to take in all the groups as well. So we will continue to challenge government to partner with the private sector to ensure that there is digital penetration. There's infrastructure. Like I said, when I spoke to the Oracle about 22 years ago or so, a lot of things we're seeing now. He predicted the infrastructure landscape. He predicted IPv6 here. So he's done a lot of predictions that it's only right that we are. So when we speak about countries like America, I do not think that America has blind spots, as many blind spots as Nigeria in terms of infrastructure. So we need to compare orange with apples and know that, well, we're evolving, but those of us who are fortunate to be in the urban centers, we can continue to use our digital access and digital tools to maybe record and capture the data, and then attitudinal, stop spreading the hate, and the mistruths and lies on social media.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Mr. Salu. Okay, I think we have a contribution. Okay, just before I come to Mr. Hastrop, I must say that, Mr. Salu, you've highlighted on a very important aspect, and that has to do with how we can, customize the technology we have access to aid good governance, and to understand it's not just for elections, it is for governance, it is for living. And there's a question that comes to that I really want to come back to you on, but I would take a contribution from Mr. Hastrop. Mr. Hastrop, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I just picked up on something that Mr. Salu said towards the end of his delivery, and that has to do with the attitude of the users of technology, especially social media. You see, as I keep saying, information technology provides us with a tool, an extremely useful tool. But as with every tool, it is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. And whatever end it provides would depend on the uses to which we put to it. What has happened, especially in the Nigerian social media space, it's become so very toxic. The uses to which people put the technology is not optimal. A lot of fake news, false stories, hate, violence, and just not being able to allow other people's opinions to be heard. All of these would be part of what I mean by the curriculum on democracy for idiots. Because democracy is not just about your own position, it's about the position of the majority of the people. So it provides for you to try to persuade other people to share your dreams, your aspirations, not to insult or abuse people or do other things. So the important thing is for us to understand the tool that we're using and to be able to change the attitudes of the users so that they can see the potential and also the negative sides of the tool. I just wanted to put in that point.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hastrop. I think that was very instructive for us to be able to consider it from that attitudinal perspective. And that, interestingly enough, links with the question I was going to follow up with Mr. Salu. And we have the challenge of early exposure to ICT. And this is from a question from one of the participants. So what I've done is I've just tried to paraphrase some of them to incorporate it into our ongoing discussion. So we have the challenge of, early exposure to ICT for young people. And in some cases, it might breed, obsessive compulsion with the use of ICT. It may, in some instances, has been reported, affect their social skills because they'll become much more introverted because you can relate more on phone than you will have to speak out. And, we have digital communities now and the likes. So in light of this, how do you think we can mitigate some of these negative impacts or negative effects of early ICT exposure for young people? Because this is part of the pedagogy Dr. Chris was talking about, and I believe it's very much a part of Democracy for Idiots, which is simply making governance, ICT, etc., relatable for young people. So, Mr. Salu, perhaps you could just give a comment on that very briefly. We are running out of time, so I'll just give a minute for that.
I do not think that position is backed by any data. I would point you to technology adoption in developed countries. And are you saying that those who are exposed to technology from young ages in Denmark, Norway, the US, they are less introverted? I do not believe that. I think it's just an excuse that is brought by. I think it's just an excuse that is brought by those who want to hold on to the old order of things. In 2007, we tried to push for the change of curriculum, and we know the challenges that were faced. We faced a lot of challenges in 2007, and it's even from lecturers of computer science as well. They said they said to us that this kind of things will not work. We must still have physical handouts and all that. And interestingly, 5 years later, they are now having digital handouts. So I do not think that it would. I do not think that it would limit any child as the child evolves, as technology changes. You should look at how 2 or 3 year olds are able to master technology at this age. And that just opens up the mind so that maybe by the time they are 30-year-olds, they're already manipulating and building robots. So I don't think we should bother about that. Those things are things that would only set to take us back if we think about behavioral and attitudinal changes. Those things are not. We should be focused more as a country on productivity.
Okay.
Yeah, where has communal living gotten us? Sitting down and always talking and gossiping? No. So we need to think about. And we need to not hold ourselves back at all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salu. I believe that's a very progressive approach to this, to understand the fact that, okay, let's make progress first before we begin to worry about these issues that might actually be raised to just try to hinder that trust towards progress. And that's very, very solid. I may also want to add that as we do make progress, it's very important for all stakeholders to be involved in the curation of the exposure of young people to ICT, particularly as it regards to social values that may be unique to a particular community or society, cultural values, norms. So just to ensure that some of these things are preserved in the the rollout of ICT exposure to young people. And that's something very important to take note of. All right, we are running out of time. I wish this could keep going on. I really wish it could keep going on, getting submissions from all around. And I've done as much as I can to incorporate the questions. If I were to read them out verbatim, we will not have enough time to continue. And but I've done my best to incorporate the questions in the Q&A section into the conversation. I've also done what I can to But then there are some questions I just really couldn't get to just because we don't have much of time. And since we are a sustainability focused organization and we preach sustainability, it would be nice if we say we end by 12 noon, then indeed we should end by 12 noon West African time. But then as we begin to round up, I would say that Mr. Hastrop, you've really set the ball rolling with this very creative and disruptive idea of democracy for idiots. I believe it's something you may consider a position paper on, or perhaps if there's something you're already working on, you could share with the TTSWG Secretariat so we can incorporate this into our advocacy initiatives in the year going forward. And also, Mr. Salu, I want to say that you've really set our minds, our fire with this thought about attitudinal change and the need to embrace ICT. And I think that just harps on what Dr. Umi Hassan said when she said, why are you trying to, someone called into their show and like, why are you trying to teach people this? Don't you know that's going to, affect them negatively? And because the world is being driven by tech, and Mr. Salu, you have made that very clear to us. We have to wake up and catch up and have more than just a consumer mentality, but start providing solutions. Because like someone say, if Nigeria as a nation gets it right, then Africa gets it right. So Mr. Salu, thank you very much for that. Dr. Umi Hassan has made very sterling submissions with regards to pedagogy. And I would have loved to bring her in on the conversation a little more, but due to the fact that, okay, please pardon me just a moment. Oh, beautiful. So due to the fact that she had to join in on a pressing engagement, so I wasn't able to bring her on, but we have some of the questions and we can document them and see how we can begin to engage these questions via our social media handles. So please follow us on Instagram at TTSWG. Follow us on Facebook at Telecommunication and Technology Sustainability Working Group. It truly has been a pleasure, and I'm glad to announce that we have our winners. We have our winners for the partner-sponsored giveaway of 20,000 Naira lunch vouchers for 2, redeemable in cash, to 3 top engagers. So I'm just going to mention, and I would really need you to kindly maybe DM your email addresses so that we can reach out to you, or we'll be able to work that out from our own end. So our top engagers are, the first person is Mariam Oduola. We have Mariam Oduola. Congratulations, you just won yourself 20,000 Naira lunch voucher, redeemable in cash, sponsored by Zenera Consulting, our partner. The second winner is Ijoma Adeniyi. Congratulations, you just won yourself 20,000 Naira lunch voucher, sponsored by Zenera Consulting, our partner. And the third is Joy Onyebuchi Unweke of A Little Sleep, A Little Slumber Empowerment. Congratulations, thank you for engaging. You just won yourself 20,000 Naira lunch voucher, sponsored by our partner, Zenera Consulting. So thank you very much. We will reach out to you in due course, and if you would be kind enough to share your email addresses so that we can take up this conversation further. So without further ado, I really need to appreciate our panelists for such a very sterling delivery. Coming away from this engagement highly enlightened, very thought-provoking engagement, thought-provoking ideas. Mr. Deji Hastrop, Mr. Oluwole Asalu came in with, a technical background of being involved as a leading CEO of one of the leading technology companies in Africa, Komodo Systems Africa. And Dr. Umi Hassan gave us a very, detailed X-ray vision of what goes on in policy making and the politicking behind the ICT sector. And, all of that just made a very interesting mix of ideas, insights, and I am really enlightened. And I hope we have learned a lot from this session. I want to really appreciate all our board members, Dr. Chris Uwaje, for making time to join, and the welcome address. I want to appreciate TTSWG member companies. I saw a number of participants from IHS Nigeria. I saw a number of participants from Natcom Technologies. I saw a number of participants from Backbone Connectivity Network, BCN, and these are these are member organizations rather, and we just want to acknowledge them. We also have Mr. Collins Oweze, editor of the Nation newspaper, and we have a host of other press people who have joined us in the course of this webinar. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate you, the audience, for following. You've been consistent from 10 a.m. till this time. It really is an investment, and I want to assure you it's a quality investment, because the greatest investment, I believe, is an investment in knowledge, so as to build up your capacity and you can engage life and issues on a whole new level. So I really want to appreciate you. Thank you for making the time. We don't take it for granted. Thank you for coming out. And we trust that when we say there's another program, you would oblige us and come out again. And also to our speakers, Mr. Hastrop, Mr. Oluwole Asalu, Dr. Umi Hassan, I do appreciate. Thank you very much for your wonderful response. And thank you to everyone, to the TTSWG board members, and also to everyone present. We appreciate you. And so this webinar comes to a close at precisely 11:59 a.m. WAT. Please feel free to engage with us on our social media handles: Instagram at TTSWG, Facebook at Telecommunication and Technology Sustainability Working Group. And we will be in touch with more of the advocacy initiatives that will be rolling out in the course of the year. And thank you so much for making time. God bless everyone. Thank you. Oh, okay, beautiful. I think it would be nice